I really like racism in fantasy settings. The reason I do is because I feel like it's the only way for people who have never experienced it in real life to get just a tiny glimpse of how it actually is. You know, when you hear a tiefling get called foul blood or hellspawn, it doesn't really hit your brain in the same way as hearing somebody get called the N-word or something like that, but it's really the same thing in universe. I've seen a lot of people say that they hate racism in fantasy settings, and a lot of those people don't look like me. You know, those people get immersed by, oh, there's books about the lore laying around and you can go hunting and you can actually eat. I feel immersed when there is racism in a setting because I've dealt with it in real life. It's just realistic, bro. Humans can't agree on religion, sports. We argue about anything different than our own beliefs. So do you think that there's a world where there's literal cat people walking around and there's not going to be a group of people that are hateful towards them? Due to my own experiences, bro, when I play in a fantasy setting like D&D or Skyrim, I never play a human, bro, because to me humans are the majority in most of these fantasy lands, and they're usually the people who are somewhat oppressive to these other races. Just playing as a human, I don't relate as much. I relate more to like tieflings who are mistrusted just off of their appearance alone and called all these different names. And to me, it's far more interesting to play as a race that is, and to me, it's far more interesting to play as a character in a fiction that is looked down upon and has to kind of fight against stereotypes and be the exception, or choose not to. Person that only plays human races, I implore you to load up Baldur's Gate 3, load up Skyrim, and play as a different race. When you hear foul blood or hellspawn, I want you to replace that with a real world slur, and it'll really change your perspective. Because I've been in those situations where I've been talking to somebody, I think they're cool, and they just let something slip about a different a minority group. And they usually think it's cool because they're not talking about, you know, the minority group I belong to, but it's still like, nah, dog, like what? I really want to know this. A lot of those characters are faction leaders, like the leaders of factions who say kind of derogatory shit about certain races. I think that's even more realistic because we seem to have this idea that people in power don't have these type of thoughts. I look at racism the same as I look at marriage. If you don't see my ring, if you don't see my wife, you wouldn't know. And there's no laws that say that I can't be racist. I mean, sure, there's laws that say you can't discriminate against, but like, again, it's all up here, bro. I've had friends who I've been playing video games with and they lose and they just shout out something derogatory. It changed my entire opinion on them. And I get things like scale skin and milk drinker sound ridiculous and stupid. That's how real racism sounds as well, bro. I'm gonna end it on this. I was literally told at 14 years old by a gentleman much older than me that I was such a cool guy, he just wished I wasn't black. Just something to think about.